Today's lesson is on subtracting decimal tenths. Just like when we worked with addition, there are different strategies you can use to subtract decimal tenths. The first strategy we're going to look at is adding in parts to subtract. So we're not actually going to subtract, we're going to add to start. So our question says 1.8 minus 0.7 is equal to what? We can reverse that question and we take the numbers and make it 0.7 plus something, it's an unknown right now, will be equal to 1.8. The easy way to solve this problem is to model it on a number line. So to start, you're going to take that 0.7 and you're going to place it on the number line. Then we're going to jump to get to our answer, which is 1.8. Now, when I'm jumping on a number line, I like to get to a whole number first. It just makes things a little bit easier. So the first whole number I see is a 1. So I want to see how far do I need to jump to get there. 1, 2, 3. So let's make that jump. We jumped 0.3 to get there. Now we have to go all the way to the 8. Well, I know from 1.0 to 1.8, that's just 8 jumps. So again, 0.8 is how far I've jumped to get to that final answer. Now, we're not finished yet. We need to take those jumps that we've done, the 0.3 and the 0.8, and we need to add those together to figure out what this missing answer would be. When I add 0.3 and 0.8, I get 1.1. So that is the missing number that should be up here. Now I'm going to take the number sentence that I've been working on, the addition, 0.7 plus 1.1 equals 1.8, and I'm going to reverse it back to the original subtraction question that I was asked. 1.8 minus 0.7 equals 1.1. Let's try another example. In this question, we have 6.6 minus 3.4. Well, we're going to reverse that first and make it into an addition question. We take the 3.4 plus our unknown, we're not sure what the answer is yet, is equal to 6.6. So remember, we always start with the first number. We're going to plot that on the number line. So we have 3.4. I want to get to a whole number first, and the first whole number I see on my number line is 4.0. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have jumped 0.6 to get to that whole number. Now, the next whole number is 5.0, but my answer is 6.6, so I think I'm going to jump right to 6.0. Now, boys and girls, be very careful because on this number line, there's a bunch of little ticks that are missing between 4.0, 5.0, and 6.0. These are actually whole numbers here. So instead of jumping 0.2, you have jumped 2.0. We just didn't put all the lines in between the numbers. And lastly, now that we are at 6.0, we need to get to 6.6. I know that is 6 more jumps, and that again is a decimal jump, 0.6. Now, as you recall from the last question, we aren't quite finished yet. We now need to take our numbers, 0.6, 2.0, and 0.6 again, and we need to add them together to find out what the total number is. That's going to give us this missing answer. When I add them all up, I get 3.2. So the missing answer here is 3.2. The last step is I can now reverse the addition question that I worked with to solve it back to a subtraction question like I was originally asked to solve. So 6.6 minus 3.4 gives me 3.2. The second strategy I'm going to teach you is breaking the number up into whole numbers and tenths. We also did this with addition. The only little thing with subtraction is you will not be able to use this method if there is regrouping involved. So you need to kind of check your numbers. Remember that little rule, if the number on top is smaller than the number on the bottom, you need to regroup? Well, these essentially would be our top numbers if we were stacking and subtracting. And so my 8 needs to be bigger than my 2, my 5 needs to be bigger than my 3, or this method won't work. But we can here. So let's break it up into whole numbers and tenths first to see how this is going to work for us. So we have 5/10. Oh, nope, sorry. My bad. We have 5 and 8/10. My brain isn't working today. Sorry, guys. Everybody has those days. Okay, so 5 and 8/10 minus 3 and 2/10. Now that we've broken them up into whole numbers and tenths, again, we will just subtract the whole numbers first and then subtract the tenths. So if I subtract 5 and 3, I get 2. And if I subtract 8/10 and 2/10, I get 6/10. So my answer would be 2 and 6/10. Then I can write that as a decimal, which would be 2.6. Let's do another example. So 7.9 subtract 2.6. First we'll break it up. So 7.9 would be 7 and 9/10. And 2 and 6/10 for 2.6. Now, as you remember, we are going to start by subtracting our whole numbers. So we're going to take 7 and we're going to take 2 and we're going to subtract them. 7 minus 2 is 5. Now we're going to subtract 9/10 and 6/10 and we would get 3/10. 9 minus 6 is 3. So our number is 5 and 3/10. When I write that as a decimal, I write it as 5.3. The final method we'll look at is stacking and subtracting. This probably works best when you have regrouping involved. So we'll do just like we did with addition. We always start on the right-hand side, in this case in the tenths column, and we're going to do 3 take away 5. Well, if you remember the rule, if the number on top is smaller than the number on the bottom, you need to regroup. And in this case, we do need to regroup. So we come over to the ones column, we cross out the 4 and we make it a 3 because we are going to take 1 and regroup it over here. Now my number is 13. Now I can do this question. One thing I forgot to put down, which I reminded you in addition, is to put the decimal down there so we don't forget about it. Now 13 take away 5 gives us 8. Now we can move over to the left-hand side, the ones column. Our new question is 3 take away 1, which would be 2. So our answer is 2.8. Let's do one more of those. So we have 5 take away 6 in our tenths column. Again, the number on top is smaller than the number on the bottom, so I need to regroup. I will cross out the 8 over here and make it a 7 so that I can regroup 1 over here. Again, put your decimal in there so when you write your answers down, you remember where your decimal point belongs. 15 take away 6 gives us 9. And over on this side, our new question is 7 take away 6, which gives us 1. So our answer is 1.9. Just like when we were doing addition with decimal tenths, when we subtract, you can use any of the 3 strategies that you are most comfortable with. Usually, as the numbers get larger, we go to the subtraction where we stack and subtract. However, when your question is easy enough that you can use mental math, or if number lines are provided, you may choose to use one of those strategies. Good luck with all of them.